Well, it's great to meet you. Thank you so
You
much for
too.
taking a minute out.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. So let's begin our journey with a question I always start with, and it's the COVID question. 6 years ago, the world was changing. We were going through this whole thing. How did you get through that COVID era, and how has it changed the way that you approach life and work today?
Um, I I got through the COVID era because I had the fortune of living in a neighborhood that has a lot of room, a lot of space, and so we weren't locked up. We were in a house. We weren't locked up, which would have given me claustrophobia, I
Yeah.
think. If I When I read about some of these people that were in a one-bedroom apartment in New York City
Oh,
with just horrible.
yeah.
Um, It really was difficult for the educational work I was doing because it interfered with the kind of pipeline of students that I was having because I'm a great believer that young students need to have in-person education.
Yeah.
You can use online as an adjunct, and there's lots of tools to use on it. For example, I would curate the best lectures on any scientific or historical subjects if I want somebody to listen to a lecture, instead of depending on a local person to do the lecture, and then have the student go listen to that lecture on their own time and keep the class time for actually discussing in person. But anyway, I'll tell you more about that later. But
Sure.
so that was difficult. I did start a couple of online discussion groups, which have been beneficial because we have drawn people from all over the world into them and they're interested. And so now they know about our organization, and some students too that later came to my in-person things. So that was difficult. I was outraged by the overreach of the government in telling everybody we should lock down. I mean, it wasn't medically necessary, it wasn't rational, it was a huge authoritarian overreach. And so I was quite against that.
Yeah.
And it proved to not even be necessary. I
Yeah.
mean, when you look at the studies in Sweden and other situations like that. So that's how I got through the COVID era. I did a lot of writing too
Yeah.
during that time. Yeah.
I remember Fauci saying at one point, all of us are going to get this. Now, there's anomalies. The way this virus worked, there's some people that didn't get it, but for the most part, it was like no matter what we do, this herd immunity is going to overtake it,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know? So, all of those, and it was weird too because you would walk into a restaurant with a mask on, then you would take it off and literally inhale food and drink that is going to completely expectorate at a rapid volume. It didn't make any sense. I mean,
Yeah. There were so many things that didn't make sense. Well, those masks, I'm sorry, I could smell everything with those masks on.
yeah,
So I knew that the air was getting through anyway.
yeah.
And then you had all these people who were wearing the mask with below their nose, and you're like, don't you? I mean, it's anyway.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not going to work. So let's get into the work that you're doing. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of 12-year-olds at Career Day. One of the
Mhm.
kids wants to know what you do for a living. How do you synthesize what you do and make it make sense to their brains?
Sure. So what I do is I have programs for 16 to 24-year-olds, sometimes older, which are specifically designed to help them develop as much reasoning power, independent judgment, and self-confidence as possible. And I do that through a combination of different activities together. I started in 2009 a summer program for high school and college students called The Great Connections. And that program includes both a special kind of Socratic seminar in which we read short texts from the great books, which, in case anybody doesn't know what those are, they're the classic texts. And the reason why we use those is because they are the best and most influential writers in history. They're the people who created today. And so if you want to understand what's going on today, it's really important to learn about these writers. And you also learn a lot about thinking well and writing well by reading them. And we use a specially designed Socratic seminar in which the teacher is the guide, but not the person with the answers. Instead, the teacher is the one who helps the students figure out what the text means for themselves. And this is one of the ways in which it increases their independent judgment. And we also do other activities. For example, I bring in accomplished professionals to talk to the students because people tend to know only what they grew up with and it's kind of like the famous professions, and they don't know all the amazing things you can do here in the world. And they also, I think young people need inspiration. They're looking for what is going to happen in the rest of their life. Can they achieve a life of happiness, of achievement, of purpose? And so to meet older adults who've done that is very inspirational to them. We do that. I also think that people tend to take for granted the world around them and not have a clue about where it's from. And so I talk to them. We usually hold these seminars in Chicago. I talk to them a little bit about the history of Chicago, about how the Great Chicago Fire shaped the fact that we're an architecture center and the fact that we have a specially designed layout of the city that makes it one of the most beautiful cities in the country. And then, and I talk to them about architecture, and then we go out on an architecture walk and we actually see these things in the city. And then I send them on a scavenger hunt where they're in teams and they have to find um, different special locations like famous places like the Tribune Tower, things like that.
Yeah.
We also do improv games. For anyone who doesn't know what improv is, it's a form of comedy that was originated in Chicago, and it's a where you don't have a script. You just have a scenario like two people coming out of an elevator, and then they have to make up crazy things that go along with that to be funny. And when you're doing improv, you have to go along with whatever the other person is doing, no matter how goofy it is. You have to try to think of something to add on to that or to change that and play off of it. And one of the reasons we do it is because it's in Chicago, so it kind of gives you a taste of that. And the other one is that in improv, you have to, the basic principle is yes and. Whatever the other person is saying, you are going along with it and you're trying to extend it. Now, this is what we try to do in the Socratic seminars, where they learn how to listen really well to other people and how to respond to them and try uh, to question or to expand what the other person is saying. Because everybody in the seminar has to use the text that we're learning from and reason and evidence for whatever their opinion is. So these are some of the things we do. And the end of the week, we go to a professional improv um, show, just to so everybody can see, well, what do the talented people do, you know?
Yeah. That's
So
wonderful.
and what happened is I started in 2009. I put everything I knew about optimal education into it for that level of development. And since the first time, I was even surprised at the response because about 75% of the students would tell me my life has been transformed because now I can judge anything myself. And you could just see their confidence rising over the week and their enjoyment of being with each other. They learn so many social skills. They get to really know the other person. It's interesting. One of the students who came in 2009 and now he's an engineer. I talked to him. He's like in his 30s, and I talked to him recently, and he said, "You know, in the seminar, you get to hear how the other person uses their mind." And so you really get to know them in that respect. And then afterwards, when you're just in informal time, you get to know them personally. So you end up knowing these people better than almost anybody else. And this causes them to form very strong bonds so that they really enjoy keeping in touch with each other and doing things whenever each other's in town because I've gotten students from all of the United States and as far as Nepal and South America and all over the place. So I talked quite a bit. I thought maybe you'd want to.
Yeah, no, I just think that what you're doing, helping fostering this level of independent thinking and getting people to another place has to be more paramount now than ever with what's going on in America, with this stranglehold on things like logic and civility and DEI and all of these things that are getting hosed under. I would imagine what you're doing probably since 2009 means more than ever.
It's really important. See, decades ago, so a little bit about my backstory. Decades ago, I knew what was going on in the universities. I knew that the left had a strategy that was getting in there, getting into the universities changing the curriculum, edging out the great books, because if somebody learns how to think from the great books, they're not going to be easily controlled. And um, taking over the whole curriculum, changing the curriculum, encouraging the high politicization of what's going on in the classroom instead of really focusing on the individual students' interests and needs. I could see that was happening. And I thought long ago some new colleges needed to be started. And so this program that I did in the summer was a kind of a compressed version of what I think should go on in college.
Yeah.
And now we're working on actually opening a new college. We're expanding the program. And because, of course, finally everybody else has woken up to what's going on, you know.
Yeah.
So there's more interest and more students are looking for something different. They have realized what ridiculous, your audience probably knows, but one of the reasons why tuition in colleges and universities is so high is because the federal government was giving out these college loans for so many decades, and it worked kind of like free money. You know, students didn't understand how much they'd have to pay back. And it encouraged all these students to go to college who maybe really didn't need to go to college for whatever they were going to, the kind of work they were going to do. And then it inflated the credentials that you needed in order to get a job. And it was welfare for the universities, basically.
Yeah.
And they just kept increasing their prices because of it, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Interesting.
um, yeah. So I forgot where I was going from there.
Well, we were just talking about the importance of what you're doing in this
Oh,
modern
yeah.
day and era. Yeah.
Yeah. So since all that's happened, I mean, I mean, the statistics coming out about what Gen Z is more and more frightening the more you read about it.
Hmm.
There was an article in Forbes about how employers are finding that Gen Z not only don't read, but they hardly can read a sentence
Yeah.
and function, or that they bring their parents to the interview for the job, or they they have a hard time talking to each other at lunch. You know, that, well, COVID, I don't know how much that's partly because of the
True.
lockdowns. That was horrible for the
Oh,
development of children from the infant all the way up through
yeah.
college. It was just a disaster.
It
So
absolutely was. So, what did you want to be when you were a kid? What was your dream job?
I didn't have one at that time. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I was really, really interested in learning. And when I was a kid, I was very frustrated by the other kids at school goofing around and distracting me from learning until I realized that they were unhappy.
Yeah.
And so I said to myself, well, what kind of educational organization okay, back it up a little. So, if anybody who knows children knows that a 2-year-old, you can hardly stop them from learning.
Yeah.
They're constantly exploring and asking questions and trying everything out and moving around. What happens when a child goes to school and when they're 8 or 9, all of a sudden they hate going to school? Why? It's because and this is way before this whole politicization. This is just about the way that school operates in traditional form. It's because the way that it operates is very frustrating to their developmental needs. So I was kind of in the looking quite when I was growing up, I was looking for, well, what kind of educational program would work so that my own children would maintain that love of learning that they have as a small child. And when I was about 20, I came across the some articles about the Montessori method,
Yeah.
and I read about it and I said, "Oh, this sounds like what I'm looking for." So then I went and educated myself about the whole thing. And then my oldest child went to a local Montessori preschool, which in Montessori we called it a children's house.
Yeah.
And when it came to elementary, there was a problem. So I helped start a Montessori elementary school, and I ran that for many years. And then I said, but my own interest in teaching was always with young adults. So part of what I do with the Great Connections is I bring the Montessori philosophy up to the young adult level. And that's part of what's going on. So.
So, who's been your inspiration? Who's been that fuel for you to have this vision so early on about educating and about getting people into the right place. What is who's and to find your place right now professionally? Who has been that for you?
Well, I would call myself an educational entrepreneur because I've started, all these different programs. Um, who's been my inspiration? Well, Maria Montessori was an amazing inspiration, but I learned about her when I was a young adult. Um, and uh, you mean to be in what I'm doing?
Well,
I don't
yeah,
know.
just in general, like a
I don't know.
heroic force. Has there been anybody that's been
Oh,
instrumental in you developing into who you are as a professional and seeing the world the way that you do?
yes, yes. The writer Ayn Rand was
Okay.
very influential on me.
Yeah.
Yes. I remember when I read her in high school, it was interesting because my social studies teacher in high school was a kind of old line Democrat, kind of and so he believed in everybody should make up their own mind. They should learn about ideas across the spectrum and ideologies. And he had, I don't know if you know about this chart that you can find. It's called the Nolan chart, and it has personal freedom on one axis and economic freedom on another.
Okay.
And then it plots where different political views go on this chart. And so an authoritarian regime would be 0, 0, no personal freedom, no economic freedom. And at that time, the Democrats would be more on the side of high personal freedom and lower economic freedom. And the Republicans would have been more on high economic freedom and lower personal freedom. And at that point, Ayn Rand was the only one in the quadrant that's for high personal freedom, high economic freedom.
Yeah.
So he had us read an author, a novel from two of the quadrants, and I read The Fountainhead.
Yeah.
And I remember when I read it, I said, "Wow, this is so much of what I think, but really well organized." So that got me interested in her. And then I read all the rest of her works. So, and she offers a very heroic vision
Yeah.
of purpose, of achievement, of rationality, um, of each person finding what they want to do in their own life and pursuing it, and trading and being a trading partner with everybody else, whether it's economic values or spiritual values. So,
So what do you think she would do if she was watching what was happening today? Because we're at the 0, 0 point.
yeah, well, actually, it's funny because one of the online classes I've been teaching is an Ayn Rand study group. And we've been reading through her other novel, Atlas Shrugged, which if your viewers don't know about it, it's a story about the world falling apart. And um, the what does the role of the people with the mind and the purpose and the productivity, what happens when they disappear to the world? And it's actually much, much worse in that story than we're at right now. Um, I wouldn't say we're at a 0, 0 line. I would say that we have a lot of really crazy forces going on. And that one of the things that will save us is that we still have free speech because it allows us to have a podcast like this
Yeah.
and to argue on X I mean, you have to thank Elon Musk for keeping that free, free and
Yeah.
open. Uh,
Yeah. Well, I guess I wasn't saying, I guess I should have been more clear about not being at 0, 0, but having the climate that could potentially lead to that level.
yeah,
Yeah.
she would be very worried. She would
Yeah.
be very. But what's interesting to me is that if you go and read her writing from the 70s, I mean, her essays just apply across the board to what the heck is going on today. She thought it was going to happen a lot sooner.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting to me that it took this long.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it reminds me of Tocqueville. So um, there's a very famous French writer from 1832 named Alexis de Tocqueville who
Yeah.
wrote a book called Democracy in America.
Hmm.
And in it, he traveled around the U.S. and he wrote all of these super insightful chapters in his book about the U.S. And one of the things he said is that We have so much freedom, excuse me, we have so much freedom that we don't pay that much attention to what's going on politically until there's a crisis.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we wake up and we say, uh-oh, we better do something about
Uh-huh.
this.
Yeah.
And I think we've gotten to that point.
Yeah.
So,
I agree. So what gets you up every day to do this work, to change lives, to educate minds? What is that motivation for you to do all of this and to also take care of your own soul?
well, I love to see the transformation in young people.
Yeah.
It's very motivating. I mean, like I said, when I have one of these seminars in the summer, the students will come and they'll kind of be uncertain and, nervous. And of course, they're used to an education where you sit in your seat and you get told by the teacher what to learn, and then you have to take a test. And I mean, if anybody wonders why they don't want to read, why they don't read, it's because they've been force feeding them reading for all these years that they then have to take a test on. And in just way too many classrooms, they don't make learning fun and interesting.
Yeah.
And so there's so many other aspects to it. I mean, we could just go off on that for
Yeah.
a long time.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it's so interesting to see they come, they're all nervous, and then they see that not only are we treating them like adults and like they have something valuable to say, but we're also helping them learn how to have something valuable to say.
Yeah.
And that whole atmosphere, and then they're learning that they can civilly and productively talk to other people about complex ideas. I mean, we do readings across the domains, like from physics to poetry, and we also do it across the ideological spectrum. So we might read Marx, we might read Adam Smith,
Yeah.
and uh, we examine all of those seriously. We take them, we approach the writers for let's try to understand what they're saying first before we criticize them.
Yeah.
And then once we feel like we really understand them, well, then yeah, let's criticize them.
Yeah.
But so the students develop this energy, this excitement about coming to class. They actually want to read the texts. They actually want to discuss them with each other. And they are talking about it after class. And then they form these longtime friendships. And that's just, a beautiful thing to see. So,
So after all of this time, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, all of the kids, everyone that's in your world, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
um, I'm somebody who likes to see uh, people thrive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I see myself.
If you could get into a time machine and go back in time and see one event in human history, where would you go? What would you love to see with your own eyes?
Oh, I'd love to know Aristotle.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe you sit down, have a talk.
He was so amazing.
Yeah.
That man, he analyzed every possible subject and so well. And his ideas have influenced the best, the best developments down the ages
Yeah.
are influenced by Aristotle.
So as you swim through all of this knowledge and imbuing that into young minds and in the world that we live in and everything that's going on, are you hopeful? Do you wake up hopeful?
I do. I mean, of course I have my down days
Yeah.
and I have my own personal things going on that are problematical. But and yeah, you wonder, okay, which way are things going? But like I said, I what just the pushback on all of the ideology that was dominant during COVID. I mean, that seemed to be the time when Black Lives Matter and so much of the political control was implemented. And this idea that we're all to blame for anybody who's got a problem, and our biggest job is to take care of everybody else. And now there's like a what do they call it? A disability Olympics,
Yeah.
where the person. It was interesting because there's all this. reporting about how autism is on the rise. There's just so many more autism. Then I read, oh, well, people are getting their kids diagnosed as autistic because then they get special treatment
Yeah,
in school,
that's
you know.
that to me is appalling. My son's 21 and he's on the spectrum. I've been in that world for a long time, and the fact that anybody would even stoop to that level is
Right?
unconscionable. Yeah.
Right. And it just blurs the whole the whole area where
Yeah.
you can't carefully understand this person's um issues and what they need to develop well and that person's. It's just a mess.
Yeah, it certainly is. So if anyone wants to dive into your world, they want to learn more, they want to get in there, where's the best place for them to go to find out, to reach out to you, contact, and all the good business?
Oh, thank you. So go to our website, reliancecollege.org. That's where we have all the information about the college we're trying to open and all of our current programs. So right now we have several programs we're running, one of which is an online great books discussion, which is on Thursday nights. We have a new program that we're starting actually next week called AI Proof You, which is about developing what really strengthening and developing what abilities make you valuable regardless of what happens with AI.
Yeah.
Because there's certain things that AI is never going to be able to do. And so we want to strengthen those. And then we have this program in the summer called The Great Connections, which is the last week of July. It's for 16 to 24-year-olds. And that's, we'll do the same thing as AI
Sure.
Proof You, but not focus specifically on AI,
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, I will put all these links in the show notes. This has been fascinating, Marcia. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your work you're doing. It's been great to be able to kind of illuminate this a little bit. So thank you so much.
You too, Joe.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, absolutely.